Get free!
Please! Please!
Stay down! Say that! Clear!
No. Oh, what's going on?
Stay where you are! Give me hands!
He called it the DMO line. A drug empire run not from a corporate office, but from the streets of Cheshire, and from the palm of a smartphone. For over 3 years, Damon Greenslade ruled his corner of the UK drug world with intimidation, branding, and charm. But his empire had cracks. And on a quiet morning in June 2023, it all came crashing down. Stacks of cash. Diamond teeth. Threats against teenagers. And a tattoo that would ultimately help bring it all to an end. The DMO brand was more than a name. It was a message. A warning. And a declaration: can't stop, won't stop. But when police found the symbol inked into the skin of their prime suspect, they weren't just looking at a gangster's ego. They were staring straight at a blueprint. And Greenslade's empire? It wasn't built alone. 5 men. Each with their own role. Each more entangled than the last. And one of them, his own flesh and blood. In a case riddled with burner phones, decoy deals, and threats of violence, the real question wasn't just how they got away with it for so long. It was why they thought they still could. This is the case of Damon Greenslade. A man who transformed a local drug operation into something more. Into a brand. Not a logo. Not a storefront. But a name whispered through alleyways and text threads. DMO. To outsiders, he was just another street dealer with flashy teeth and loud clothes. But to those inside the trade, he was a businessman. A recruiter. And to some, he was a threat. Behind the Instagram posts and designer tracksuits was a strategy. Control the streets. Flood the market. Keep the product moving. And never stop building the brand. But what Greenslade built wasn't just a drug line. It was a machine powered by fear, loyalty, and silence. And his employees? Teenagers. Vulnerable. Disposable. Fed with promises of easy money. And punished when they didn't deliver. There was Lewis Charlesworth, quick to move and quicker to disappear. Patrick Bruce, whose silence masked a dangerous loyalty. Jed Sutton, Rhys Evans, Daniel Greenslade, his own brother. All bound by the same secret. All walking the edge of a crumbling empire. But what brought Damon Greenslade down wasn't just law enforcement. It wasn't surveillance vans, wiretaps, or a single confession. It was his ego. The selfies. The hashtags. The tattoos. A man so confident in his invincibility. He branded himself with his criminal identity. And in doing so, he left a trail of digital breadcrumbs that led investigators straight to the heart of his operation. The empire was loud. But the collapse? It started in whispers. And when it fell, it didn't just take Greenslade down. It exposed a network, a method. And a warning. The streets were watching. But so were the police. Before we dive deeper into this incredible case, if you're someone who finds true crime as fascinating as it is important, and you believe these stories deserve to be told with depth and care, then go ahead and click that subscribe button and give this video a like. It helps more people find these stories. And it means we can keep bringing you the truth, no matter how dark, twisted, or hidden it might be. Now, let's go back to where it all began. The rise of the DMO line. Congleton. A quiet market town in the heart of Cheshire. Cobblestone streets. Independent shops. It wasn't the kind of place you'd expect to find a drug empire. Let alone one built on fear, phones, and branding. But beneath its calm, Congleton had cracks. And one man knew exactly where to plant his roots. Damon Greenslade. Born and raised in the UK, with early ties to Congleton and surrounding towns. His childhood wasn't one of overt violence or tragedy. But it was marked by something else. Edge. He grew up skimming the border between mischief and menace. Shoplifting here. A school suspension there. He wasn't the kind of kid people feared. But they noticed him. And as he got older, the stakes changed. By his 20s, Damon wasn't just known. He was watched. Not by police, yet. But by others like him. Men who moved weight. Talked quietly. Kept clean hands. They saw potential. And so did he. He had 2 kids by his early 30s. Ties to the mothers remained, sometimes rocky, but always present. He wasn't absent, not exactly. He'd show up. Play the part. Drop off cash. Flash gifts. And then disappear for weeks. His family knew something was off. A few asked questions. Most didn't. After all, he was always dressed nicely. Always had money. And as one relative would later say, Damon just liked to flash cash. But the truth wasn't about the cash. It was about control. Because while Damon played dad on weekends, he was building something else in the shadows. A network. A supply chain. A brand, DMO. It didn't start as an empire. It started as a nickname. Something was whispered during pickups, scribbled on burner phones. But it grew. And as it grew, so did his grip. Congleton wasn't ready. It wasn't London. It wasn't Manchester. Here, a gram could ripple for days. A new face on the block got noticed. But Damon? He didn't flood the streets. He let the streets come to him. He used kids, sometimes 15 or 16 years old. Told them they'd make quick cash. Promised protection. Then dropped them into neighborhoods with a burner phone, and a warning, don't mess this up. Some were too scared to quit. Others were too poor to say no. And when things went wrong, as they always do, there were threats. One teen was allegedly cornered in a park after losing track of a delivery. Another vanished for 2 days, only to reappear bruised and silent. None of it ever traced back to Damon directly. Because Damon didn't get his hands dirty. To the community, he was just around. He wasn't feared in public. He didn't act like a thug. He smiled. Wore flashy clothes. Posted selfies with stacks of money and gold chains. Sometimes, he'd hand out free joints, call it marketing. Some locals thought he was just a wannabe influencer. Others weren't so sure. But no one imagined the scale. They didn't see the hidden trap houses. The coded drop-offs. The growing list of names under the DMO line. They didn't see the network stretching out to Rhys Evans, Patrick Bruce, Jed Sutton, and Daniel Greenslade, his brother. By the time police began to connect the dots, Damon had already turned a quiet market town into a distribution hub. And yet, he still thought he was untouchable. He still believed the town was too small. The kids too scared. The cops are too slow. But what he didn't know was that someone had already started talking. And every empire, no matter how flashy, has a weak point. March 2020. As the world shut down, Damon Greenslade powered up. While most people were stockpiling hand sanitizer and queuing outside supermarkets, Greenslade saw the lockdown as something else. An opportunity. The streets were empty. Schools were closed. Police overstretched. Distracted. And the youth? Bored. Isolated. Online. This is when the DMO line first flickered to life. Not with violence. But with a ping. Encrypted apps. Disappearing messages. A new number. A promise, fast drops. Best gear. The first one's free. He wasn't just selling drugs. He was selling branding. Free cannabis joints with first orders. Referral discounts for new customers. Memes. Hashtags. Geotags. DMO wasn't lurking in shadows anymore. It was trending. 2020 melted into 2021. And Greenslade wasn't working alone. He was building a network. He started with kids he already knew. Then cousins of friends. Then strangers desperate for cash. Some said no. They didn't say it twice. The DMO line was always changing numbers. Drop locations were rotated hourly. And every kid had a different handler. And all the while, Greenslet. He was posting selfies. Diamond-encrusted grills. Designer tracksuits. Cash was fanned across car dashboards. He wasn't hiding. He was flaunting. And the more he flashed, the more he attracted eyes. From the streets. From parents. From police. Late 2021. The first real fractures appeared. A runner was robbed during a handoff. Another never came home. And then, 3 reports. 3 teens, same school. All missing. All rumored to be working for DMO. Still, there was no direct link. No fingerprints. No surveillance. Just whispers. And Greenslet? He doubled down. 2022. Law enforcement changed its approach. Surveillance teams were deployed. Plainclothes officers took to the streets of Cheshire. And the digital trail? It began to tell a story. Encrypted messages traced through burner phones. Patterns emerged, same phrasing, same emojis. Different numbers, same command chain. Then, a breakthrough. A tip-off led officers to a recovered phone. Inside, a string of photos, DMO-related hashtags. And a name. Damon Greenslet. But it wasn't enough. Not yet. They needed more. So, they waited. Early 2023. A forensic digital sweep confirmed what investigators suspected. DMO wasn't just slang. It was a handle. It was his handle. Greenslet had left a trail across social media. Photos of his diamond teeth, with the caption. Can't stop, won't stop. And in one now deleted post. A tattoo. His hand curled around a stack of pound 20s. And inked across his knuckles. DMO. It wasn't just a symbol. It was a signature. That tattoo would later be matched by multiple witnesses. Runners. Victims. Even ex-partners. June 2023. The day it all ended. A coordinated raid. Multiple addresses were hit simultaneously across Cheshire. Officers found what they were looking for, and more than they expected. Kilos of cocaine. Bags of MDMA. Boxes of cannabis. Over £100,000 in cash. And phones. Dozens of them. Burners. SIMs. Notes written in code. And Greenslet. Arrested without resistance. No shouting. No running. Just silence. As the brand he built, DMO, came crashing down. But the story doesn't end with a pair of handcuffs. Because what police uncovered in those phones would crack open the second layer of this empire. And reveal just how deep DMO really went. And the people closest to him. They weren't just bystanders. They were part of the machine. After the raid in June 2023, police didn't just arrest Damon Greenslet. They opened a floodgate. And what poured out was more than just drugs and cash. It was evidence. Cold. Relentless. Damning. The phones told the story first. Dozens of mobiles seized, burners, backups, second SIMs. Each packed with fragments of a hidden empire. Messages. Some simple. 2 white, 1 green. Meet Tesco lot. Others, more coded. Symbols, emojis, and nicknames only insiders understood. And price lists, actual digital menus. With rates for coke, MDMA, cannabis, even loyalty perks. Buy 5, get 1 free. As if it were a coffee shop. But the phones were just the start. Social media told another story. Photos from Damon's personal accounts. Grinning with bundles of cash, showing off diamond teeth. Were matched with surveillance footage captured months prior. Same car. Same watch. Same tattooed hand reaching out a car window. The hand with DMO inked across the knuckles. But the most damning evidence. didn't come from tech. It came from people. One by one, former runners started to speak. Some from safe houses. Some are under protection orders. And some, too afraid to show their faces. Their stories matched. Verbatim. Greenslade had approached them with charm. Told them they'd make easy money. Just a few drops a day, he said. No heat, no danger. You're good with me. But when one teen lost a parcel, everything changed. He locked me in a garage, the witness said. No lights. Just music blasting for hours. Said if I talked, my sister would get a visit. Another runner told investigators he'd been forced to stash drugs in his own bedroom. Threats weren't implied, they were direct. Sometimes from Damon himself. Other times, from his circle. And that circle was tighter than police first thought. Forensic teams combed through every device. Fingerprints on Ziploc bags. Packaging with Damon's DNA. Metadata showing phone locations. Places where drops were confirmed. Bank records surfaced. Money moved in small, frequent payments. Unexplained deposits. Unusual transfers to friends and family. Some thought his parents were involved. Others pointed fingers at his younger brother, Daniel. Police looked. They found patterns. But not enough to prosecute the relatives. Meanwhile, the public was already watching. By mid-July 2023, headlines screamed. The DMO dealer, drug lord with diamond teeth. Influencer or kingpin? Inside the fall of Greenslade E. His face was everywhere. Clips from his old TikToks were dissected. A selfie from a nightclub, zoomed in, analyzed for details. A mirror photo where a line of powder sat behind him, missed until it wasn't. He had documented his own empire. One post at a time. But the most surprising twist? Some of his closest allies flipped. 2 key members of the inner circle agreed to cooperate. In exchange for lighter sentencing. They turned state's evidence. And they didn't just talk. They delivered. Voice notes. Old burner sims. Photos they'd hidden. Proof of drop-offs. And confirmation that Damon ran it all. But there was still a mystery. Some believed Greenslade wasn't at the top. That DMO was just a branch. A smaller piece of a larger syndicate operating across the Northwest. A theory surfaced that Greenslade paid tax to a Manchester gang. In return for protection and supply. But there was no proof. No names. No trail. Only whispers. He was too organized to be working alone, one detective said. But too loud to be working for someone bigger. Then came another theory. Money laundering. Suspicious bank activity tied to a relative. A car purchased in someone else's name. A side hustle involving cryptocurrency. But again. Nothing that stuck. Not in court. What did stick? It was Damon's ego. He didn't just build a business. He branded it. Bragged about it. He tattooed it on his own skin. And in the end. That's what broke him. Because behind the flashy filters and designer drip. He was a man addicted to power. And attention. The kind that doesn't just attract customers. It attracts police. And as the trial neared. More names would fall. More secrets would surface. And what was once just a drug line. Would soon unravel into something much darker. After his arrest in June 2023, Damon Greenslade didn't waste time fighting the inevitable. He was charged with multiple offenses. Including the supply of Class A and B drugs. Conspiracy to distribute narcotics. And the exploitation of minors for criminal activity. Facing overwhelming evidence. From text messages to surveillance footage. And testimony from former runners. Greenslade made a move. He pleaded guilty to most of the charges. In what many believe was an attempt to shield others. Or perhaps himself, from even deeper scrutiny. But in the courtroom. His strategy didn't buy him much mercy. He was sentenced to 16 years in prison. During sentencing, the judge didn't hold back. He condemned Greenslit's unapologetic behavior. And his public glorification of crime. The branded drug line. The diamond-encrusted smile. The tattoo that said, DMO. Can't stop, won't stop. It wasn't just the drugs. It was the message. And that message, the judge said, had corrupted too many lives to ignore. Outside the courthouse, the crowd was split. Parents of the teens Greenslit exploited stood with tear-stained faces. Some had no idea their children were involved until the police showed up at their door. Others had suspected. But didn't know who to blame, until now. They called the sentence too short. They wanted 20. Or more. But not everyone wanted Damon behind bars. Members of his own family. Some quiet, others defiant. Gave interviews defending him. They said he was just showing off. That the cash was legal. That the kids involved had a choice. But inside those homes, the truth was harder to deny. Some of Greenslit's closest associates had already flipped. And whispers began circulating about sealed indictments. About names not yet made public. There was talk of another name. Someone bigger. Someone who supplied Greenslit. But never touched a phone. Never left a trace. And though Damon was locked away, the DMO name still lingered. Because even from inside prison, new rumors began to surface. About coded messages passed through visitors. About a second line still operating in Cheshire. And about a former associate. Planning something that would make DMO look like the minor leagues. 16 years may have closed Damon Greenslit's chapter. But the story of DMO, that is far from over. After Damon Greenslit's sentencing, the headlines began to fade. But the shadow he left behind didn't. In Congleton and across Cheshire, the echoes of the DMO line were still being felt. In classrooms, teachers noticed the silence first. The kids who used to act out suddenly became withdrawn. Others, once top of their year, began missing school entirely. Local schools responded quickly. More counselors were hired. Assemblies were held on grooming, exploitation, and the true face of modern drug networks. This wasn't just about violence anymore. It was about influence. It was about branding. Youth services opened new drop-in centers for at-risk teens. Not in response to one boy, but to an entire system that had crept in while no one was watching. Police didn't stop either. They launched a multi-county initiative aimed at preteens. Explaining how drug gangs now recruit using likes, followers, and fear. The campaign warned. If someone online offers you money to hold something, you're already inside the trap. But the Greenslit case did more than just rattle families. It rattled the system. Cheshire lawmakers began drafting new regulations. Targeting how drugs were being advertised through social media. Encrypted emojis. Referral codes. Price lists disguised as stories. They called it algorithmic exploitation. And Greenslit's playbook was Exhibit A. The media seized the story too. In the months that followed, true crime podcasts dedicated entire seasons to the DMO brand. Local documentaries unpacked the myth and madness. How a man turned a drug line into a status symbol. How teens wore the logo like it was streetwear. How one tattoo, can't stop, won't stop, came to define a generation's descent into organized crime. Years from now, people may forget the name Damon Greenslit. But in Congleton, and in the homes of those he touched, the legacy of DMO lives on. A reminder that even the smallest towns aren't safe from the darkest empires. Damon Greenslit built a kingdom on flash and fear. He branded himself with diamonds, with slogans. With an image he thought would make him untouchable. But in the end, it was that very image that helped bring him down. The DMO line is gone. Dismantled. Dismembered. Forgotten by some. But not by the kids who were pulled into it. Not by the families left picking up the pieces. And not by the community that watched their small town become a headline. Because sometimes, a story isn't just about the rise and fall. It's about the aftermath. The scars that don't make the news. The names we'll never hear. Because they're still trying to survive what he started. If you or someone you know is being pressured, recruited, or threatened into criminal activity, don't stay silent. Contact your local safeguarding services. Or reach out to Crime Stoppers. Anonymously. Safely. Someone is always listening. And if this story opened your eyes, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell, so you never miss another deep dive into the untold stories behind the headlines. Because the truth doesn't hide forever. It just waits for someone willing to uncover it.